All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Red Hat Agile Day, where we're inviting Agilists from all over the Triangle and beyond, and the Agile Curious. This is our 5th annual event, so welcome. Thank you very much for coming. I want to ask you all to give yourselves a big round of applause for embodying the spirit of Agile. So can you do that for me right now? That was also a cheesy way to do an audio check, but thank you. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, I have some just basic housekeeping things to go over so you all know what you're doing here today. If you feel like getting on social media anytime, use hashtag Red Hat Agile Day or at Red Hat Agile Day if you're using something other than Twitter. The core track sessions are in Kickball. That is down at the end of the hall. The advanced track sessions are in this room. We're going to make the slide decks available later. We don't have all of them yet. We'll put those up on the website. We'll also put the recordings from both sessions. This year, I think we're going to do it. Fingers crossed, we'll have recordings for both advanced and core track. All right. If we run out of coffee, we have plenty out there, but if we run out, don't hesitate to go across the street or up the block. There's 4 or 5 coffee shops around here, and we try to support our local merchants. Bathrooms are down the hall and to the left as you're walking down the hall, so people always need to know about that. Getting down into the nitty-gritty things, right? Lunch will be at 12 o'clock. Those of you, if you're not a vegetarian, don't eat up the vegetarian kebabs. We run out of those too fast, and vegetarians only eat the vegetables. So please if you're a meat eater, stay with your kind. And finally, when the day is over at 4:30, we're going to have a beer session over at Growler USA. That's 1/2 of a block north of here, up Blunt Street. The intent is that the first beer is on Red Hat, so I highly encourage you to go there. It's upstairs and in the back, so when you go in and you go up the stairs, you'll get a ticket, and that'll be your beer. Feel free to stick around and have more beers after that. So on that very happy note, now I can introduce Mike. Allow me to introduce Mike. Now, he embodies a great leadership and is a deep Agile thinker, and if you ever get a chance to speak with him, you'll find this out. He's incredibly well-read and well-spoken, and I'm not just saying that because he's Red Hat's CIO. Here is Mike Kelly.
All right. Thanks, RJ. Wow, thank you. Oh, I left my coffee back there. I'm going to need that. How's everybody doing? Great. Welcome. Let me make my first mistake here in this presentation, forgetting my coffee. I live on the West Coast, so it's 5:30 a.m. for me, so bear with me. So welcome, and thank you all for having me. I don't think I've ever been described as well-read. Thank you for that. Wow. Always feel like I could read more. Anyway, thanks for being here. How many are non-Red Hatters? Oh, wow. Awesome. Well, welcome. This is our annex building, and we do all sorts of events here, and so I've had a chance to talk to various folks about various topics. And thanks for coming. How many of you are in non-IT roles? Cool. Okay, good. The rest of you, I assume, are part of this wonderful profession, being in IT. Great. Well, look, I hope you guys have a great day, and I want to kick you off and get you started on what I hope will be a fulfilling day for you, and you'll learn a lot and meet some new people and embrace this movement that we have around Agile. I have to tell you, I was kind of wondering why I would be selected to talk to this, because I started my career in probably the least Agile job out there. Anybody guess what it was? Pretty Agile, project management. Oh, man. Okay, we're going to have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. So I started my career as an accountant. I know. Oh. Any accountants here? Oh, we're recording it. Shoot, I can't offend everyone. Anyway, it didn't take me long to get into IT. I'll tell you a little bit about how that happened and the process that I've been through to understand why Agile is so important. I want to sort of give you guys a little context of I'm sure those of you who have kids, especially little kids, they ask you all the time, like, why? I think as adults, we should be asking the question, why? So I'm asking the question this morning, why? And we'll talk a little bit about that as I go through for the next little bit of time here. For a little over 2 years, prior to arriving here, I was at a very large healthcare company, Fortune 5, and my very large operation, a really, really big company that was really heavily on the execution side of things. And we were also trying to do some Agile. So trying to pivot like that was pretty difficult for us. We went through that transition. I'll talk about that a little bit. And having been in IT for, that one little stint in accounting before I escaped, having been in IT for now a little over 20 years, I can tell you, I really feel like I've sort of seen it all. And what I would tell you is, this is a great time to be a technologist. It's actually a great time to be a change agent. And if you think about what we do in technology, change is really fundamentally at the core of everything that we do. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about today about how important change is and maybe why we're in this phase of change that we have in front of us. As CIOs, we absolutely love a challenge. All of my peers in industry that I talk to, we're fired up about challenges, and then we get down to sort of lead them, and we say, oh boy, how are we going to do this? How will I be the steady hand on the rudder to lead this change? And so, I think the question I hope that all of you should always be asking yourself is, why Agile and why now? Why is this the best way? And why is now the best way to bring these practices to bear? We'll talk about that a little bit. So for me, as I thought about, why are we talking about Agile being such a critical component of what we're doing right now? And I couldn't help myself because I'm waiting a really, really, really long time to put a Ricky Bobby picture in one of my presentations. And I honestly think, as funny as this is, those of you guys who have seen the movie of the great Will Ferrell, why is Agile so important? Because I just want to go fast. Everybody wants to go fast. You can't wake up in the morning and get into your job and not feel the pressure to go fast. And why is that, right? Why is it that we have to go fast? And here we are at 8:35 in the morning, 5 minutes into my discussion, and here comes the word. Are you guys ready? Why? Digital transformation. There it is. First buzzword of the day, and only, hopefully. Businesses are moving at a breakneck pace, and everyone wants to move fast because they feel as if they are going to be, what? Disrupted, right? The profit pools that all of you have enjoyed in your respective businesses for many years are frankly under siege. At Red Hat, we like to think of ourselves as a disruptor, and we have, I think, done a pretty good job of bringing some disruptive technologies to markets. But as we look at our customers and our businesses, everyone is trying to go fast. Not a day goes by where I don't say, hey, how can we go fast? And listen, being in IT as long as I've been in, I've never been accused of saying, hey, IT, you take too long and you cost too much money. Anybody ever been accused of that? Right. So the question is, how do we go fast? And what is the most effective way that we can go fast? Here's a couple statistics, or an interesting study, I should say. So this came from MIT, and what this says is that 90% of companies believe they're engaged in some form of digitization, yet only 16% of them are organized and ready to go. So to me, this just reeks of opportunity, right? And the ability for us to think about, my God, if everybody is, it's the difference between saying it and doing it, right? And everybody that writes about this function, and they do a great job of covering the CIO role, talking about all the things we should be doing. I can't tell you how many guidebooks and articles and armchair quarterbacking I get on how to do my job and how to actually close this gap. So there's a lot of people out there that want to help us. There's a lot of people out there that want for us to be successful and to be able to go fast. I believe this is the opportunity of our time. It's an enormous opportunity. And having been in tech as long as I have, it's just so fun and exciting to see all these things that are happening. I mean, guys ride these bird scooters around here or seen them or try to run somebody over riding one. So last night I took my team out. We went out for dinner and we rode birds around downtown Raleigh. And I know the people who founded the company, and it is growing like crazy. And they're changing the way we move around, and it's here to stay. So people are organized, and the question is, especially if you're perhaps a more traditional company, right? So what's the holdup? Why are we not going as fast as we could go? And I want to tell you all a little story about this. Back very early in my career, any of you guys done a ERP implementation? Okay, great. So when I came out of accounting and I went into IT, one of the first jobs I had is I was the functional lead. Anybody been a functional lead? Yeah. Anybody ever been to a conference room pilot? You guys remember those terms? Come on. I'm not that old, am I? All right. Anyway. I was living in the UK, and I was part of this team that was doing a European rollout of a new ERP system. And I was the functional lead on the finance application. And my job was to help advocate that the new process and the new system was going to have everything was going to be great. And I was all excited because we were going to do one of our rollouts in Italy. And I'm Mike Kelly, so I'm half Irish, but the other half of me is Italian. So I was really excited. I was like, I'm going to Italy. I've never been there. Really fired up. And I had my partner, Francesca, who spoke Italian. I did not and still do not speak Italian. And we go to Milan, and we're all excited because we had configured this system, and I had been using the old system. So I knew the new system was the bee's knees. And I was all excited about that opportunity. Got in there, got all set up, got our display going. The demo gods were with us. So I thought, we started walking everybody through the new functionality, the change that was upon them. And Italian culture, one can describe as passionate, right? Animated, perhaps. I got yelled at in Italian by an accounts payable department for about half an hour. And I left that meeting. I said to myself, what just happened? This system is badass. And these people are yelling at me because they don't like it. I don't get it. What's going on here? And a little bit later, I drew this picture. And I've been holding on to this for about 20 years. And to me, this is what the holdup is. I'm going to talk about applications for a little bit. I know many of you guys are in analytics and other parts of change, perhaps outside of tech. But I drew this picture. And what I said to myself is that, okay, we're in this phase where IT, how many of you heard prior to about 2-3 years ago, IT is not a core competency? Therefore, we are going to have a really effective cost position. We're going to drive variability out. We're going to adopt standardized processes, and we're going to outsource our functions to places where we can get it better, faster, cheaper. You guys heard that? Right. So that was the play that we ran for a really, really, really long time. And in that context, what I would say is that we were actually really doing two things. We were either modifying business processes, or we were actually modifying the software that we just bought by turning and twisting knobs. And how many of you all said, we get into a project and let's keep it vanilla? Heard that one, right? Out of the box. Oh, God, I just went to Italy and got yelled at by these people for showing them something out of the box. I'm not so sure that's the right way to go, right? And so we spent all this time working through this process, and fundamentally, I think we were doing two things. If you were in the upper left corner where your position was, you know what, we're going to modify our business process, and we're going to keep the software vanilla. We call that vendor best practice, right? Oh, the new system, the way they do it is the way we should do it. The best run businesses run SAP. Heard that, right? Down in the bottom right corner were my friends in the Italian accounts payable department. They didn't want to change. And all they wanted was their XJ75 report that showed them how to do their job. And, when you walk in as a technologist and you drop this bomb on them, it wasn't a very pleasant experience, right? I'm sure all of you have stories like this. I have tons of them I can go on. This is the one that was first in my career, and it stuck with me. And it sticks with me to this day when I think about what you all are here to do to drive change, whether it be in methodology A or Agile. The reason that we're doing change is to make things better, but not everybody operates at the same pace. Not everybody goes as fast as perhaps you know they can in your head. Now, if you're any good at this, right, you could draw this line through the middle of your work. And up top, again, our job was to drive out variability, keep costs as tight as possible, and keep the lights on, right? So those are all functional points of parity. So the way you produce your tax statements, or the way you do your general ledger, or the way you run your pricing schema, maybe those things are parity in your particular business. On the other side were things that really differentiated you, things that made you different, things that actually were like, hey, we actually have to modify the software in some regard. And in a lot of ways, we try to do that through configuration, right? In a lot of ways, we try to do it through code, and God forbid we actually ever made a modification to the system. So we worked with these vendors that were selling us these applications, and then we created all these industry solutions, right? I was part of one for the software industry, the prior company I worked at, where hey, this is the way that our process works, and you need to actually embed this into your system. And we would just be reliant on those people to do that. And what happened was everybody else wanted to go faster, right? So what do you think came out of the stuff that was in the bottom right corner for IT departments, right? Number one request that I was getting was, hey, just give us an extract of the data. Why? Because somebody had a server under their desk, and that extract was going to become the database of the application that they were going to write, right? And we call those groups Shadow IT, right? That's how that was born. So the CIO organization would look at that and be like, you're doing it wrong. That hardware is not our standard. That's not secure. It's not in the data center. It's not. And the business was like, screw you guys. This works, and we're getting shit done, and these people are where we're going. So they took their work there. And guess what methodologies those people were practicing? This is where Agile was born in the company that I was in, because we were doing other methods in this context. So the reason that I think that we can't go as fast as we can is because we're still coming out of this cycle. I really firmly believe that. I mean, even here at Red Hat, and I'm sure those of you that aren't here maybe have this image of the fact that Red Hat is the super snazzy tech company. And when we are, we like to liken ourselves that way, but we have the same issues here. We have legacy systems that we run. We have, people that need to change. Not like, we snap our fingers and and by the way, we love technology here. Like, no question. I'm looking at some of the Red Hatters and we're like, we like technology here, right? But the point is that we're still working through this cycle. And so in order for us to get out of this, right, we've done a couple of things within Red Hat IT I want to share with you guys to just sort of set a little context on how we lead. So what's the plan? So the first thing that we did within my team, and I don't know if you guys in your teams are working through this back to the why of why are we doing Agile. The way that it fits in is the first thing that we've said very, very clearly is business capabilities drive applications and systems, and applications and systems drive infrastructure. Now, I see a lot of people nodding their heads. You'd be amazed that this concept still doesn't resonate with everybody. This is a change in and of itself within our team to talk about how are we organizing our work and how are we going to drive this change forward. So in this context, what we agreed was, okay, now all of a sudden IT is no longer not a core competency, is it? Right? IT is every company is a software company. Right? Has it heard that? Well, not every company is geared up to be a software company. Thank you very much. Right? And then even some software companies aren't geared up to be software companies. So how do you get your head around, how you're going to drive these changes? What we've done, we've just agreed that this is our sort of guiding principle. And if you take that into the context, back to that chart that I drew you around points of parity and points of differentiation, this is a pretty simple chart, right? I get that, but sometimes there's value in simplicity. We've gone through and we said, look, we're still going to buy and configure software, especially in those places where we have points of parity. So we've listed what some of those applications are. Like, we're not going to build an ERP system. We're going to buy one. We're going to configure it. We're going to make it work. On those points of differentiation, this is the greatest part. This is the time that's making our lives really fun, is that IT is now being told you should build software. Anybody engaged in that in your companies, right? Like we have the green light now to go build software, which is awesome because not only do we have the green light, but we actually finally now have the tooling. In our case, I don't want to make this a Red Hat commercial, but we do have OpenShift, which is our premier platform for application development. And we have this open hybrid cloud idea that sits underneath that. So we've brought all that to bear within our organization. So from my perspective, I finally have the tools to really do my job, to really drive those points of parity and those points of differentiation and make what we do even better. Now, the trick to all of this, right, is what do you think is still the constant? We have the ability to go super, super fast now. So we've got DevOps and CI/CD pipelines and delivery cycles that are within minutes versus days, and deployments, A/B deployments that we can test things at scale really, really fast. Like, it blows my mind. I think back to the days that I was doing that conference room pilot in Italy. Like, the infrastructure we were running on was like that was the long pole in the tent. We just couldn't move very fast. Now that those barriers are gone, but the barrier that still exists are people's ability to change. And this is where this idea of leading from behind comes into play. So what do I mean by leading by behind? It's kind of a weird term, like you guys think about leaders, up front carrying the flag, right? Charging up the hill. I love leaders that do that and then they turn around, there's nobody behind them. Like, oh, that's a great idea. You are sure a great leader. No one's following you. Interesting. What I've learned in my time is all of you are experts in this practice of Agile. I understand the concepts of it. I mean, for me, it is about going fast. I hate to simplify it, but in my mind, that's kind of why we do it, because we want to do better and we want to go faster. We also want to get it more accurate, right? And we also want to bring everybody along. So I'm sure that a lot of you have been in situations where you're in a project and you are driving the project on behalf of somebody else, right? You guys have all been in that position? And you probably have been in, there's probably been a moment where you've been like, oh my God, why don't these people get it? What is wrong with them? Like, why can't they understand what I'm trying to say? And the fact is, you probably are 5, 6, 7 steps ahead in terms of how to get something done. And as more and more people come into this method and this way of working, it's important that you figure out where your leadership position is going to come from. If all you do is stand out front and proclaim, we have this methodology, and therefore we are going to be first, no one's going to follow you. You have to give people the context that they need to actually embrace and digest and take this change at whatever pace they feel comfortable with. Don't make the mistake of thinking that somebody who, is ready to change and is all fired up about it is actually going to change. You all been there, done that, right? There's this notion that, and it's funny, Jim, our CEO, stood up at our summit and told everybody that planning is dead. And I was like, yes, my boss just said planning's dead. How cool is that? What he was trying to say is that the days of prescribed change are over. And the days of configuring things and enabling things and allowing people to collaborate in new cycles at new paces is what's here. And what fuels all that is an agile mindset, As I thought about doing this presentation, I actually just thought about putting a blank slide up there and being like, hey, let's iterate. But the point of leading from behind, I think, has 3 components. The first one is, if I can get my clicker to work here, know your place. So we've been talking about this a little bit here. Your job is to be a change agent. You're already an Agile expert. And you're here today with your peers, and you're going to spend the day, and you're going to become an even stronger expert in the principles of this methodology. And you'll meet people and learn from their experiences, and you'll hear their war stories, and you'll share yours. And that's great. Your place, you're the resident expert in how this is supposed to work. But where you find where you're going to lead from is really important to just understand where people are coming from, right? And just recognize that, wow, while I am very excited about what this change presents in itself, the opportunity for it, maybe this person's not ready. So know your place. What I think about, and you too, those of you that lead teams, is recruiting the right change agents from outside of your perhaps traditional place you might get them. I've had this saying for a long time, right person, right job. Sometimes people see these big transformative opportunities and they raise their hand and say, put me in, coach, I'm ready to go. Some of them are ready, some of them are not. I once had a guy who, he stood outside my door every day when I came into work. Am I going to get the job? Am I going to get the job? Am I going to get the job? I want to lead the project. I want to lead the project. Like, dude, it's just by doing this, you're showing me you're not ready, right? Because you have to actually have the mindset of and to get the experience. Everybody wants to be in a leadership role, but sometimes leadership comes from everywhere. It comes from every corner of every project. Some of the best projects I've ever been on, I don't even remember who the top person was. I just remember the team that was performing underneath of it that just was zeroed in on, hey, we're going to really help people ease this change, and they're going to really help understand it. So the right person in the right job is absolutely imperative. I did once put that guy in a job, and he realized quickly he wasn't ready, which is the third point. Once you put these people into their roles, and once you start up with deciding from what post you're going to drive this change, you have to put up guardrails. As a leader, and you should give this feedback to your larger leaders, is put people in change roles, understand what they're going to go through, and give them all the help that they need. And make sure that they understand that asking for help is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness. A lot of times people get into these roles and they're going to lead the transformation of their company, and they've got way too much bravado on what it takes to go do that. And you've got to just pull them aside and make sure they really understand what's happening here. How do you know who's changing? Who are the key opinion leaders? Who's got this? Who's got that? How are we addressing this move? What's happening with the way that they do it over here and the way that they're going to do it tomorrow? What's going to happen to these people? Do we have a plan? Right? One of the big things about the cycle we were in prior to this one was some of that, the movements on that curve were people, very bluntly, were afraid they were going to lose their job. Right? They were. They're like, oh my God, if you automate what I'm doing, what am I going to do? Well, this too is your challenge, is to act with empathy in those situations and understand what is the role. And in some cases, it may be that, we're going to have to reduce staff. Not everybody can move on to more strategic work, right? We're in this phase, this great phase of technology with things like automation and AI and ML, and the big debate that's out there, you guys read about it, is this going to reduce or create jobs, right? My argument is actually I think it's going to create more. Remains to be seen, but just to have some empathy about what that means for people. And as you're looking at your leader, make sure they have the right, EQ as well as the IQ. That really is what defines good and bad projects. And so as you go about, doing your work every day, hopefully these things resonate with you. And just take a pause. You all are experts in Agile, right? You are. And your job is to shed light around with everybody else around you who may not understand what the hell you're talking about. Don't forget that. Don't forget that, right? Think about why. Why are we doing this? Well, we want to go fast, right? Hopefully Ricky Bobby comes up in your head. I don't know. We want to go fast. We also want to be accurate. And so I think that if you can just remind yourself of that as you go through the day today, there is a very human and emotional part to the change that you are driving. And those, I think, that are most aware of it and can help, turn it into an asset as opposed to it becoming a liability no one's paying attention to, are those that are really going to truly succeed. So Here at Red Hat, we have tremendous amounts of large programs. And someone will bring a business case to me, and the first question I'll ask is, okay, who's the leader? And if it's somebody from IT, I'm typically like, okay, awesome. Great opportunity for that person, but who's their partner? Who will they get behind, right, and help drive the change? I think all of the many projects that I've seen fail, in my personal opinion, have failed because they don't have the right person from the business who steps into the role, right, or the product owner, or the terminology that we use for it, to own that change. And too often we get hooked up on, the optimism bias that goes along with the new system. Now, you guys ever suffer from that? You guys know what optimism bias is? Oh, well, once I lose 10 pounds, or, once I get in shape, once I stop eating French fries and hamburgers, I'm never going to do that. Once we get this new system, everything's going to be great. No way. Don't fall prey to that. That's the beginning, right? If you put all these things around and lead from a position, it doesn't have to be at the front. It can be at the side. It can be in the back. That's your job, is to be that change agent. And I would put forth to you that if you really, truly pay attention to that, along with the tried and true methods that this practice has and continues to develop, the ability to go, I think the tools are there. I honestly think the only thing that's holding us back from going super, super fast is our ability to bring all of us along in a meaningful and thoughtful way. So that's the seed I wanted to plant with all of you this morning. And I've got a couple minutes here. Questions, or what do you want to do, RJ? Yeah, a couple questions. You got time for that, right? Cool. Let's be agile.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
My question is, from your perspective, I hear you speaking, excuse the term, down to the organization from what you see from your position.
Sure.
The same rules apply if I look left, if I look right to my peers, and then leadership even above, right?
Yeah.
Do the same rules apply, or are there different subtleties to apply here?
I don't think there's different rules. No way. I mean, at least for me, in the way I lead, I think ideas come from every corner and every place, and the leader's job is to help find them and make people feel comfortable that they can, convey those ideas. So I don't think that there's every company's a little different, right? Every leader is a little bit different. I'm just giving my personal opinion, and I would say, even if you have somebody who probably maybe has a top-down mentality, or not invented here, it wasn't my idea, it's not a great idea, you can fight that. Like that's never going to work. I mean, maybe it works in some settings, but I think in what we're doing, it just doesn't work. So I would encourage your teams to speak up. Here at Red Hat, how we describe that is we attempt to be a diverse, inclusive meritocracy. That's sort of our open source heritage. That's really how the spirit of how an open source project works. They don't all work that way. You get a few bullies here and there. But, I would say, to me, the team is the most important thing. And the team is a function of, I think, the leader. And the top leader, certainly, but, the team of people that you're around. So I don't think there's any different rules. And I would just encourage you to make sure all the good ideas are heard. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks, Mike, for all your story. Could you give us like an amusing anecdote or story or something that, when I say the phrase, "who moved my cheese" moment?
Oh, God. Well, who moved my cheese moment? Oh, man. I told you that, the Italian accounts payable story, which has scarred me for life. But I got thrown to the wolves in a project where I didn't have right job, right place, perhaps in some people's mind, where I didn't have the right guardrails around me. And we drove this the circumstances were a little different. The company that I worked for, we had acquired another company. The acquired company, it was a merger, so the stock tickers merged, and the company that we had acquired had took their books, for lack of a better term. And this is pre Enron and all these things, right? And overnight, the stocks of both companies went down about 80%. And I got told, get on a plane and go, I'm not going to say what city it was, because it'll give away who the company was. Go to city, and you are going to put them on our SAP environment, Mike. You're in charge. I said, okay. And we screwed up. We got the work done. The project team kicked ass, and we worked our butts off, and we chugged around it. The who moved my cheese moment was we changed the way that everybody in the software company, we changed the way everybody in the company entered their time. And we trained them. But there's a big difference between training and education. I'll tell you guys at Growler tonight if you'd like to hear that. But we didn't take the time to actually walk through the things that are common now. Personas, day in the life, walking. We just didn't do that. It was just like, get it in. So in some people's minds, I was really, really successful. In other people's minds, people were really pissed off that I moved their cheese. In fact, it's funny you bring that book up, because a project a couple of years later, we had the change management team. We ran around to everybody's desk that was going to be implemented like the night before go live, and we put a copy of Who Moved My Cheese, a bottle of Tylenol, and a little thing of Jack Daniels on everyone's desk. and there was a note that said everything's going to be all right. So, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
Thanks. So I heard, thanks for your talk, by the way. I heard a little bit of business and IT, and if we're running a project, we need a partner in the business side.
Yeah.
So what's your sense of maybe in 2 years, 5 years, the role of IT being centralized or decentralized, or how do we make business our partner in this change?
So your project is sort of outside of the IT space, right? Is that? Yeah.
The goal of any project is to help the business.
Absolutely, yeah,
right?
yeah,
and our customers.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think the role of the IT organization, again, this is why I say, sometimes it's best to lead from behind, right? I think anything if you lead with the technology, I think you're going to get bit. If you lead with the business outcome, that's why that little chart we have around business capabilities, that's what drives everything. So as I think about, that's why I asked the question earlier, how many of you are not in an IT organization? Because I think this methodology and this way of doing work, it needs to be prevalent everywhere. Because I think the days of, let's write out the plan, let's execute the plan as it was written, and everyone will be happy are long gone. We just can't predict the future that quickly. So this whole idea of configure and plan and execute, I think, is in circles, and going fast is really what it means to be. But I think the principles of change are still the same. And I do think those of us who have been in technology long enough that understand, technology drives a lot of these changes, or it enables, it either drives them or enables them, or both. And to think through just the human element, to me, is what's most important. So from an IT perspective, our goal is to make sure our IT teams are as aligned closely to the business as possible, and that the business acumen of anybody who's in an IT organization that I attempt to lead is higher than it was before I got there. I always want to elevate the game. I walk around and I ask questions of our team. Some of them are here in the room. It's like, how do we make money? Can't answer that question. I think you got some problems. So, other questions? Yeah. I can hear you.
All right. So question is, there's a notion that it's lonely on the top. That the very
lonely
top
on the top?
Right. So how do you socialize, or do you socialize with other CIOs? And what are those forums? What do they look like?
Yeah. It's lonely at the top. I don't know about that. Not lonely. I socialize with other CIOs every day. This is, there's this big joke, CIO stands for career is over. You guys ever heard that? I can always go back to accounting. I socialize with other CIOs all the time. And in fact, tomorrow I have a quarterly, I live on the West Coast, and I have a quarterly CIO meeting. And it's no vendors, and we just get together and talk. And increasingly, the discussion, we talk about tech because we have to, right? Just kind of in our DNA. But increasingly, the conversation is around being a change agent. And I'll tell you this, back to all the things that have been written about this profession, which is good and bad, right? I feel like I got a lot of armchair quarterbacks, which I like to help. It's great. For the longest time, there's been this discussion, and maybe you guys have ever heard this. Well, if we could just get a seat at the table, right? If people would just let us lead and shift us away from when you are in a function and you hear what you do is not a core competency of the company, like that doesn't actually, does that feel good? No. Like it's kind of like, what are you talking about? We are core. We run this place, right? Now it's shifted. Now every company is a software. That's why I said this is a really fun time right now, because all those things that we have been asking for are now present. And there's a little bit of an oh shit moment, right? Like, wow, we really do have to drive this thing. And that's why I'm sharing this with you, is because it's not just going to happen, right? And so I talk to other CIOs about this all the time, and 9 times out of 10, our conversation will start with some, cool technology or some funny experience, or someone just had an outage and they got bags under their eyes, and it always comes back to the human element of the change that we're facing. Other questions?
Hi, I'm Patrick. I'm a UXD designer. Working on OpenShift now.
Nice.
I would like to ask, I guess, how do you see change being impacted horizontally across sectors in our products? We focus a lot on scale right now. We're enhancing lots of things with this CoreOS, model, and we're enabling organizations to move fast. But how do you see that playing when we start thinking horizontally across sectors?
To me, that comes back to the persona and knowledge of how, the knee bone connects to the ankle bone. So if you're working on a particular product and you don't understand how it relates to the other parts of the product, you know the product you're working on. Don't focus your efforts on learning more about that. Focus your efforts on where it connects to other places of the business. And the day in the life and the persona, ask people, ask practitioners, like, how do you do your job? Show me what you do. That to me is invaluable. Just being curious and trying to understand the bigger picture just yields tremendous results. I mean, we support our sales organization in IT, right? So I want our IT team to hop in the car with a sales rep and go door to door with them and understand what's going on. I've done that with other teams. I ran a business that was focused on community-based oncology care. So we wrote an application that was managing the inventory for a cancer center. And when you are 1,000 miles away from where someone is receiving chemotherapy and you're writing the software that they have to use every day, and you don't go see it, you can't feel it, and therefore you write a crappy product. So I would send my team, and they would walk in the room, and they would see the environment, and they would say, oh my God, I have 500 ideas, I gotta go back to their desk and code up some of the most awesome enhancements we've ever seen before. So I would get out there and understand the work to be done, and then you'll see the connections. That's my best advice. Yeah. I got the hook. Thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a great day.